Joined now by the Daily Wire superstar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Formerly of I guess you're still the J-Boys show.
Yeah.
But
still,
it'll always be that.
It'll always be that. It's still in my Twitter profile. It's so you can see the J-Boys. People always ask me, they're like, where did that name come from? It's just what they used to call me when the baseball team in high school. So
it was natural.
Yeah, it was natural.
It was natural.
It wasn't something that was I just woke up in the middle of the night one night. Oh God!
Got to do that. That's my nickname.
They'll love this.
Can't nickname yourself.
Yeah. No.
But no, y'all, Daily Wire, Crain and Company. You and Cone and your brother Blaine just kind of hang out in a very nice studio for.
It's a good gig. Beats working in the steel mill, that's for sure.
That is true.
Or
in
summer.
junior college.
Oh, dude, I did that one summer.
Did you really?
Oh, God, it was so bad. My father was one of those guys who's like, you're going to work a summer job that's hard. So I would do construction. Literally, my summer of my freshman year of high school, while doing all the sports, my job on the construction site was to take the broken bricks in the wheelbarrow from each lot and take them over to the dumpster.
That sounds awful.
I don't know if there's a job that's like, there's nobody under. And that is the lowest of the totem pole. But
everybody is your superior.
I would take that a million times over working at the steel mill. It was so hot. Oh my God, just incredibly hot. It's Mordor. That's basically what it was.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So let's talk a little Florida first.
Okay.
To me, I'm looking at Florida, I'm like, I don't buy him, then I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I should buy him, and then maybe I shouldn't, and then I'm looking at him now, I'm like, Billy might survive this, and they may be pretty damn good and still be 7-5.
Well, to me, Florida, it's like when you walk into the bar and you look and there's a girl you think's good looking that's way over there, and you can't make your mind up, and then you hear her talk and she's got a terrible voice, so you're like going back and forth on whether like you should do this or not. Because my question is, 7-5 is going to be very difficult with that schedule.
And those 5 losses, if they're good losses, that's a good year.
Does 7-5 save them though? Like, what's the number?
There's not one. Like, well, it is 7-5, but it's the 7 and the 5.
Yeah, it's what type of 7-5.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that the struggles that Billy has had is people kind of point at Florida and like laugh like it was under Will Muschamp. That's really not what's going on at Florida. I was talking with Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. He said Florida may have the best D-line in the SEC. Like they legitimately might. You look at
one of the deepest.
You look at what Graham Mertz, the 2 quarterbacks last year that shocked me. Very rarely am I shocked. Talking about from a development standpoint and making such a big jump was Haynes King and Graham Mertz. Because Graham Mertz put some good stuff on tape at Wisconsin, but he
put some bad stuff on tape too.
So it shocked me how well they operated. But losing Ricky Pearsall that's going to hurt a lot more than I think people think. Look, Wilson's a hell of a player.
Yeah.
He's dynamic, but you got to have more than that because the defense, just like Auburn last year, defenses would line up against Auburn and say, you know what, we're going to take Rivaldo Fairweather away,
and we're done.
Else can get open,
and
that's it, and we're going to stop the run. So
it's Occam's razor.
It really is. So that Miami game week 1, I've said I think is worth 3 years for each program because only 2 things can happen. Either Florida is going to lose that game
and fire everybody,
put them on a downward trajectory because it is Miami, an in-state team, or Florida's going to win that game, which is going to make Mario look awful because everybody's been making fun of Florida.
Exactly.
So that opener is almost worth 3 years to me.
It is, and that's one of those games where you talk about the importance of an event. Like, I think the Elijah Moore pretending to pee like a dog in the Egg Bowl changed the state of Mississippi football for more than a decade. Miami versus Florida in week 1 might be the exact same thing on a higher level.
And I agree with you. And Barrett, here's the way I look at Florida. What would we be saying what would we be thinking about Florida if they had Auburn's schedule? We'd probably be sitting there saying, look,
8-4, 9-3 maybe.
But with that schedule, because it all goes into the calculus, right? It all goes into the math problem. The roster, the depth, the schedule, the coaches, and you look at that schedule, and I mean, your non-conference is Miami, UCF, at Florida State. I mean, goodness gracious, it's difficult. I said their schedule is like walking into your house and the lights are off, and you get jumped by a bunch of dwarfs with baseball bats. It's just awful. Everywhere you turn, it hurts.
I was talking with Andy Staples about this. The On 3 set is right there. I was talking with Andy this morning after he got done with his show. And he said, we were talking about Florida, we're like, okay, 7-5, it depends on the 7-5. And I'm like, okay, but if they go that final stretch of a 5-game gauntlet after the bye week, and those are the 5, that means the first 7 are undefeated. But if they lose one of those games, that means they beat somebody down the stretch that they have no business beating. So it's like there's so many layers to Florida. It's the most fascinating team to me.
It is, because again, everything that's going into it. When you play the type of teams that they play as well, including UCF, with KJ Jefferson, they are downhill, downhill, downhill. These are physical games. Florida does have depth, but I mean, do they have enough? Now, another thing, Barrett, and this I was talking with Matt Moscone about this. I am wondering, now that the transfer portal is so crazy, let's say Billy Napier goes 6-6. Does it hinge on, guys, if we fire him, DJ Lagway's probably gone? Just like South Carolina, what if they go 5-7, and like if we fire Shane Beamer, Lenora Sellers
everybody's
may
gone.
leave. So, like, at what point do you say, you know what, we're going to ride this out one more year? And then you look at Florida's schedule next year.
It's the same exact thing.
It's the exact same thing. So, like, what are you going to do? You're going to bring in a brand new guy after the roster gets wiped, because it will get wiped.
And it'll be like Colorado's roster.
And it will be a unmitigated, you will get that guy, whoever takes that job, which Florida's a great job, but there's not a lot of people that are safe and have built up a lot of equity that are going to walk into that situation with that schedule year one, and that be their first impression of Florida fans.
Well, and what's crazy too is that you can sit there, if you're a Florida fan or Florida president or AD, and you fire Billy Napier, everybody within that organization will say, all right, we're going to be patient with the next guy, because like what you said will happen. Roster attrition, basically you're rebuilding from scratch. Okay, we'll be patient. And then after a year and a half, we're like, screw this.
Yeah.
We don't want to be patient anymore. We want to win titles.
Well, it used to be, and Barrett, you know this better than anybody, it used to be in college football, when you got a job, you had at least 3 years.
Yeah.
You had 3 recruiting cycles, which gives you time to get your players in to run your system, which gives you time to put your culture in the locker room, which gives you time to build your structure, because you are a CEO of an organization.
Yeah.
Now I think it's 2. Now I think you got 2. And if one of those years, especially the second year, is an unmitigated disaster, you're fired. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Florida's so interesting. Okay, so you were surprised by Graham Mertz last year. I was floored by Graham Mertz. I think we've had this conversation before. What needs to change? How does he get even better?
Well, I think there's a ceiling on Graham Mertz.
He might have hit it. That's the thing. He might have hit it.
And you know what? That's great. Maxing out your potential is not a bad thing. I don't think he has to be Drew Brees or Dan Marino or any of that. He has to continue to make good decisions. What I'm worried about with Florida, and that was probably the thing that shocked me the most, because in Wisconsin, he turned the ball over a decent amount. And even if you go back and watch the tape, he put a lot of balls in harm's way. Like he just
that COVID year especially.
Oh, all the time. But I think Florida's biggest problem, what needs to change, is they've got to be more organized as in-game coaches. I'll give you a great example. All right, and we saw it multiple times throughout the year. But you go play Utah week 1 on the road.
Oh my God!
You go play them.
2 numbers on the field at the same time.
You give up a 70-yard bomb on the first play because the third-string quarterback's in there, and you thought they were going to run it. But then you answer. Right, you go down and you score a touchdown at 7-7.
And it looked fine.
You grab the momentum back. I'm sitting there watching that game. I'm like, these teams are pretty even.
Yeah.
And Cam Rising's not playing. So then you get a 3 and out. So you're going to get the ball back. Everything is perfect. And I was a special teams coordinator at Division I level for 3.5 years. All right, you have a chart, your full depth chart, big. You see coaches walking around with the sheets and all this.
Yeah.
It literally has in color coded all the way 4 deep. I used to go 4 deep. Yeah. And you have the numbers on the sides, and you have a different color code for guys with the same numbers.
Yeah.
And typically it's red because you don't.
You can't have them together.
How that happens in that situation is absolutely unacceptable. But it wasn't just that. Look at the amount of times they jumped off sides in crucial situations. Look at the amount of just disorganization. It's one thing to lose because the other team is better than you and they just beat you. It's another thing to lose because you were unorganized during the game. And I think that's what scares Florida fans, the ones that know when they're watching the game, what's going on. It looks disorganized, and you cannot win. You cannot operate a Fortune 500 company. You cannot be build a great organization or a great business or win in athletics if you are not organized when you're at the highest level.
And it's crazy too, because I thought Billy was. At Louisiana, I was like, this guy's awesome. He totally gets it. He's worked in the SEC. He's gone out west. He has success at a reasonably high level as a head coach, he'll be able to handle that.
He will.
And he didn't.
No, and he didn't. And look, the buck does stop with the head coach. You can sit here and say, well, Billy Napier's not the special teams. You hired the special teams guy.
Yeah.
That's your guy. You're the head coach. You get paid the most money. You got the biggest buyout. You're the one that gets to do all the media events and all the shine and all the stuff around the town. So the buck does stop with you. So if Florida does not get organized, Barrett, with that schedule, that plus just not being as good as some of the teams that could play could tank it. Like if there's anything that's going to just, the Titanic's going down and Florida fans just sitting there playing the violin on the deck of the ship, just sitting there watching it, I think the disorganization may be the thing that would be the final straw to get Billy Napier.
It's going to be wild. I'm rooting for Florida. I did my SEC helmet schedule wins and losses.
Yeah.
They ended up 7-5 on my list. I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
Well, I never root for anybody to get fired. Well, outside of Brian Harsin. But I hope he turns it around, just like I hope Sam Pittman figures it out, just like I hope Shane Beamer figures it out. But there's a problem. It's impossible for all of them probably to figure it out because everybody plays everybody. So somebody's going down this year. I think it's going to be Sam Pittman in Arkansas, but Billy Napier. That's what the disorganization is what surprised me.
It's very disappointing because I thought better. All right. Last night in our email inboxes we have our predicted order of finish ballots. Who do you have in the SEC championship game? Who do you have in the playoff out of the SEC?
All right, so I do want to preface it with this. I don't make my final predictions till after fall camp because I need to know who wins what job, who gets hurt, and who gets arrested. Because we still got quarterback battle, and what's going to happen in Georgia? Who knows? I would say right now, though, because we have to do it here, I think Georgia plays Ole Miss twice.
Really?
I think Georgia.
I love that you're on board with the Ole Miss hype.
Oh, dude,
I am too. Not that level, though.
The thing that scares me about Ole Miss is I don't know how they're going to handle being the big dog now. Because they've always, you've had expectations and high expectations. They won 11 games last year. But now there's legitimate reason for them to have a chance to win an SEC championship, which they haven't, Barrett. They haven't won the SEC championship, in the game. They won the West, I think, with LSU in 2003, but LSU went and played in the SEC championship. So I think Georgia and Ole Miss, right now, not final, will play twice.
I love it.
And in the playoff, I've got Georgia, I've got Ole Miss, I've got Texas.
I like it. I have those three. I have Texas over Georgia in the regular season, and then they flip it in the SEC championship game. Georgia and Texas in, Ole Miss in, Alabama on sort of landscape watch, so to speak.
I mean, is that what we're calling it now? Or are we calling
I guess we're calling it the bubble. Yeah.
Don't we got to come up with something different? Like, there's no way we can call it the Final Four.
No, we can't call it the Final Four.
There, but do we need to come up with a different term?
Yeah, we do.
We need to figure that out.
Greg's back there. We can ask him.
We'll ask him.
Jay Crain, where can people find you? Your excellent work.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, if you like Barrett's show, I'm sure you're going to like ours. It's Crain and Company. Just go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's Crain and Company. It's me, former Michigan quarterback David Cohn.
Superstar quarterback.
Yeah. Everybody thinks he's the pitcher. Like he says, I'd never pitch for the Mets. But my brother played with Austin Eckler at Western State, Colorado. You can find us. We're live 2 to 3:30 p.m. Central each weekday. Do live calls, have a live chat. We got a lot of fun. You like old school sports shows? That's us.
Jake, appreciate it.
Barrett, you're the man. Smothered and covered. I feel smothered and covered.
With knowledge.
With knowledge.
With knowledge.
Yeah, make sure and add that caveat.